On this show, we compare the best parts of our childhoods and argue which decade was better, the 80s or the 90s.
In this episode, we'll be discussing which decade had the best summer blockbuster movie, the history of 1989 versus 1999, and if the 1990s winter fad, the GT Snow Racer, would fly today.
Which decade was better? You can help us decide.
So stick around for this episode of 10 Years Apart.
We're going back, way back. It's the 10 Years Apart podcast.
80s versus 90s.
With Adam and Scott.
Welcome to the 10 Years Apart podcast. I'm Scott, one of the hosts, and I'm joined by my co-host, Adam. Adam, how's things going?
Things are going great. Thank you.
So this podcast is all about comparing our childhoods. My childhood was growing up during the 80s and Adam's the 90s, making us 10 years apart.
In this episode, we are going to be comparing which decade we thought had the best summer blockbuster movie as a child.
I'll pick my favorite blockbuster from the 1980s and Adam will pick his from the 1990s.
Then we'll debate on which summer blockbuster movie was the best, and you can also vote which blockbuster was your favorite from those decades.
You can vote right here if you're watching us on YouTube by clicking in the poll in the top right corner, or you can vote on any of our social media at 10 Years Apart Pod, or by visiting our website at 10yearsapart.com.
After we get through our debate on the best summer blockbuster movie, we'll also have our segment which we call Does It Fly Today?, where we look at a movie, song, or a product from either the 1980s or the 1990s and discuss why we think it faded away and if we think it would hold up today.
On this episode, we'll be looking back at a 1990s winter fad, the GT Snow Racer, and asking, would that fly today?
That will be a little later, so stick around for that too. And before we get into our best blockbuster movie debate, we're going to start off with the first segment, which we call A Year from Our Past.
A Year from Our Past.
In A Year from Our Past, we'll be doing a brief history look back at a year from each decade and what we remember from those years.
So Scott will be looking at 1989, and I'll be covering 1999.
I'll get us started with 1989 movies. So some popular movies that came out in 1989, we had Dead Poets Society, The Abyss, Born on the 4th of July, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Field of Dreams, Major League, Tango and Cash, Dead Calm, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Weekend at Bernie's, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Roadhouse, and Batman. The best picture, or the winner with the Oscar for the best picture in 1989 was Driving Miss Daisy. And the highest grossing movie worldwide in 1989 was Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, with $471 million.
Some popular movies from 1999 include The Matrix, Fight Club, The Sixth Sense, Being John Malkovich, American Beauty, Star Wars Episode 1, The Blair Witch Project, Eyes Wide Shut, Toy Story 2, American Pie, Office Space, The Green Mile, 10 Things I Hate About You, Man on the Moon, and Boondock Saints. The winner for Best Picture in 1999 was American Beauty, and the highest grossing picture was Star Wars Episode 1 with a worldwide gross of $1,027 million.
So the 1999 movies, there's quite a few of them actually in there that I really enjoyed. I saw most of those in the theater at the time. Really liked The Matrix, the first one. So that was, that kind of changed the game for movies in some ways. And I remember leaving the theater and thinking, in the beginning it was kind of hard to comprehend what I had just seen, but I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
Fight Club is another movie I really liked. The Sixth Sense, I remember watching that. And it had the big ending or twist at the end. Being John Malkovich, I didn't see that year or in the theater, but I saw it later on. And American Beauty, the same. I didn't see it in the theater. I don't think I did. I might have, but I really enjoyed that movie too.
Yep, it's a good one.
Star Wars Episode 1, I remember all the hype to go see that, and I think I enjoyed it at the time, but not so much afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And the Blair Witch Project was one that I remember, the audience or people waiting to go to that. I remember rushing into the theater just to find a seat. And the people that I went with, we all had to sit in different areas. There was just huge lineups to go see that movie because of the hype that was built over that too.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as 1989 movies go, Dead Calm was a movie that I really enjoyed, but I actually watched it on video. It's probably a movie a lot of people wouldn't know, but it was with Nicole Kidman and
I remember that
Billy Zane,
Yeah.
where they're on a boat, kind of a thriller type movie.
Yeah, Billy Zane's kind of the villain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tango and Cash I really enjoyed with Stallone and Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell, yeah.
And Weekend at Bernie's was a fun movie. I remember watching it quite a few times on VHS, a few years later. And Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure was a movie that I was really into at the time and saw that in the theater, but also multiple times afterwards. As well as Roadhouse. I believe Roadhouse is the most played movie ever on TV.
Really?
And played the most every year on TV.
I thought it would have been like Shawshank or something.
No, Roadhouse is just one of those silly movies that people really enjoy. And I don't know if it has to do with, it could be with just movie rights and the length of the movie and stuff, but every year it's the most played movie on TV channels. And Batman, I remember when that came out, that was a big deal. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I thought it was a bit kind of silly at the time, but it was an okay movie. But overall, I have to say 1999 movies seem a lot better than 1989.
Yeah, for the 1989 movies, I loved a lot of these when I was a kid. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and Weekend at Bernie's. I remember watching that with my siblings. Which Indiana Jones was it? Was it The Last Crusade, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite one out of the three, or I guess four now. But
that was the third one, right?
Yeah, that's the one with Sean Connery. I thought that one was highly entertaining. I think it's actually better than the other two, or the other three. Yeah, and for 1999, I mean, you got a lot of classics here just to end the decade with. The Matrix was mind-blowing. I remember Fight Club, just loving that as a teenager. And, being John Malkovich, I really loved Charlie Kaufman and things that he's done since then too, like Adaptation and other things like that. Eyes Wide Shut, that's Stanley Kubrick's last movie, which he's my favorite director of all time. So a lot of people don't really care for it. I like it quite a bit. But a lot of these ones like American Pie, like I was just entering high school at this time. So my friends and I were crazy about movies like that. And Office Space, obviously, is kind of a cult classic. But yeah, I think 1999 had some really notable ones that stick out here. Star Wars Episode 1, I didn't care for it at all. And I don't like Attack of the Clones either, but I do really like Revenge of the Sith.
Some 1989 hit music that came out in that year. We had Richard Marx with Right Here Waiting for You, Young MC with Bust a Move, Skid Row, 18 in Life, Aerosmith with Crying, Technotronic with Pump Up the Jam, Madonna, Like a Prayer, the B-52s, Love Shack, Billy Joe with We Didn't Start the Fire, Alice Cooper with Poison, Great White with Once Bitten, Twice Shy, Alana Miles with Black Velvet, and Queen with I Want It All. The song of the year for the Billboard was Every Rose Has a Thorn by Poison, and the Grammy for the best song of the year was The Wind Beneath My Wings, sung by Bette Midler.
Some popular music from 1999 include Ricky Martin's Livin' La Vida Loca, Smash Mouth with All Star, Red Hot Chili Peppers' Scar Tissue, the Backstreet Boys with I Want It That Way, Santana with Smooth, Blink-182, What's My Age Again, Eminem, My Name Is, Dr. Dre, Still D.R.E., Destiny's Child, Say My Name. The song of the year, according to the Billboard Top 100, was Believe by Cher, and the song that walked away with the Grammy for Best Song is Smooth by Santana featuring Rob Thomas.
For music, I think I enjoyed the 1989 songs a little more than the 1999 songs. I was quite into both metal and I guess what you would call hair bands now back in that time. So I was a huge Skid Row fan and enjoyed that album when it came out. Aerosmith were making a big comeback at that time, with his daughter in the videos and what's her name, Elisa Silverstone with her. And I think it might have been because of Armageddon soundtrack and stuff like that. I was a big Alice Cooper fan and really liked that song Poison that he did. Not the band, but the actual song called Poison. And Great White, Once Bitten, Twice Shy. I actually saw both of those, Alice Cooper and Great White, in concert on New Year's Day, 1990. So those songs came out, the year before, but I saw both of them in concert that year, kind of. And Atlanta Miles, Black Velvet, was a song that drove me nuts because it was played over and over again on Much Music in Canada. She was a Canadian. They overplayed a lot of Canadian content, but I get that.
Yeah.
And the 1999 songs, I know quite a few of them, but they're not my boathouse in terms of music. Smash Mouth All Star was kind of fun. All the other ones, I'm not sure. Even the Grammy for Best Song of the Year was Smooth. If I heard it, I would know it. Like, I know who Santana is. So it's all guitar. And Rob Thomas, was he the singer of Matchbox 22 or something like that?
Matchbox 20, yeah.
So not a big fan of the 99 music songs that were listed there anyway.
Yeah. For the 1989 music, the ones that stick out for me are, the Black Velvet one you mentioned. Probably heard that everywhere when I was a kid. And Just Like a Prayer, the Madonna song. Actually, my girlfriend likes to sing that at karaoke, like every time we go. But yeah, for the 1999 music, I was just, like I mentioned earlier, I was just entering high school. And the ones that stick out for me are the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Blink-182. And this is like when Eminem became very popular at first. And that Dr. Dre song, just that album, I think it was like the Chronic 2001 or whatever. Yeah, we were always listening to that when I was in high school. So, and I think that Believe song by Cher, that's like one of the first uses of like auto-tune in a song, right? Where her voice gets kind of distorted.
I have no idea. It could be. I thought it was always like that, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Santana song, that's one of those ones where if you're in Canada, at least, like at a grocery store or a pharmacy or anything, that always comes on. It's just one of those songs that I guess people like to shop to or something. I just hear it all the time when I'm back home visiting. So
yeah, I'm sure I know it, and I'm sure it probably drives me nuts if I hear it, but
yeah,
who knows?
It's very much like a summer song.
I'm a big Red Hot Chili Pepper fan too. I kind of forgot that was on there. But I like the older Chili Peppers. Up until Blood, Sugar, Sex Magic album.
Yeah, I think, Californication, that was kind of like their comeback, like when they became relevant again. Because it's got quite a few catchy songs on it.
Yeah. All right, so for 1989's TV news and other events in TV, we had the debut seasons of some famous shows like Cops, The Simpsons, like the standalone version of the show, Baywatch, and Seinfeld. The Comedy Channel debuted in 1989, and it would become Comedy Central 2 years later in the US. And two of my favorite shows during that time all came to an end with the end of Family Ties and Miami Vice. Some popular toy releases in 1989, we had the Nintendo Game Boy. Some technical breakthroughs from 1989, we had the first record of global warming and a sign of the greenhouse effect. The first of 24 satellites of the Global Positioning System is placed into orbit. And the first photos ever of the planet Neptune were taken from Voyager 2. And some news events from 1989. We had 96 people were crushed to death in England at an FA Cup semi-final soccer game between Nottingham Forest and Liverpool. Thousands of students occupy Tiananmen Square in Beijing, China, protesting for democracy. The Chinese government declares martial law and hundreds of demonstrators are killed. Also, the serial killer Ted Bundy is executed in Florida's electric chair. And the Exxon Valdez oil spill occurred off the coast of Alaska.
Some TV events from 1999 include the Biography Channel being launched, Family Guy airs its first pilot, Home Improvement ends its 8-season run with its series finale on ABC, and a man named John Carpenter becomes the first player on ABC's game show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire to win $1 million. Some popular toy releases from 1999 include Pokemon merchandise, and some technical breakthroughs include David Bowie's Hours becomes the first complete music album by a major artist available to download over the internet in advance of the physical release. First emojis, or emoticons, are introduced in Japan, and the first BlackBerry is released using the same hardware as the interactive pager 950 and running on the mobile text network. And Napster, a music downloading service, debuts. Some famous news events from 1999 include the China News Service announcing new government restrictions on internet use aimed especially at internet cafes. U.S. President Bill Clinton is acquitted in the impeachment proceedings of the United States Senate, and Nunavut, an Inuit homeland, is created from the eastern portion of the Northwest Territories to become Canada's third territory. Former Warsaw Pact members Hungary, Poland, and the Czech Republic join NATO. And off the coast of Martha's Vineyard, a plane crashes piloted by John F. Kennedy Jr., killing him, his wife Carolyn Bessette Kennedy, and her sister Lauren Bessette. And finally, Boris Yeltsin resigned as president of Russia, leaving Prime Minister Vladimir Putin as the acting president.
From 1989, as far as TV shows go, I mean, I was a huge fan of Miami Vice and Family Ties, so it was sad when they both came to an end that year. But obviously all the shows that debuted for their first season, I mean, Cops, I think it was one of the longest running shows up to this year. Obviously it got taken off the air.
Mm-hmm.
And Simpsons is still going, so it must be just as long as Cops. I don't know which one had more episodes. It might have been Cops.
Yeah, you mentioned Simpsons debuted on its own because originally it was on like the Tracy Ullman show or something.
Yeah,
it was
something
like a
like
segment.
that. First aired on one of those.
Yeah.
And obviously Baywatch was quite famous, and obviously Seinfeld was a fan favorite for most people.
Yeah.
I never got into the Nintendo Game Boy, so that wasn't a big deal to me. Same in 1999, like Pokemon. I was never into anything regarding Pokemon, so don't have much to say about the toys for those years. And as far as the news goes, I actually remember everything, or every one of the events from 1989, including the soccer game, seeing that on the news. The whole thing with China, I don't remember that as much, but it's obviously famous now. I think that's the famous film clip with the guy standing in front of the tank.
Right. Yeah, he's kind of having a face-off with the tank.
With the briefcase or whatever.
Yeah.
And Ted Bundy, I didn't know much about back then, but obviously I've seen the documentaries and stuff on him now. So, And I definitely remember the Exxon oil spill. And people cleaning that up afterwards, and what a big deal it was. As far as 1999 goes, technical breakthroughs from that year, I mean, I remember Napster, because I'm a huge Metallica fan, and I remember everything, that whole thing went, ended up with Metallica fighting against Napster type thing.
A lot of that was like the drummer as well, right?
Well, he's the spokesperson, but it's the band.
Yeah.
He's just the member that talks a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Home Improvement with TV. Home Improvement was a show that I kind of enjoyed back when, like sitcoms or whatever you want to call them were still around and still popular. So that coming to an end in that year was, I'm sure I watched it. I don't remember it.
Yeah.
And Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I remember that being popular. Was the guy's name John Carpenter? That's odd. That's same as the director, right?
Yeah.
Different
and I think
guy,
he also, I think it was him. He called, he phoned a friend, or he phoned his dad. One of those like options you have with the questions.
Yeah.
And instead of asking for the answer, he just said, "Oh, I know the answer. I'm just calling to tell you I'm going to win $1 million."
Yeah, I think I remember that.
Yeah, for 1989, I mean, TV, Seinfeld and Simpsons, they grew to become like some of my favorite shows from the 90s. Obviously, like the earlier seasons aren't that great. If you go back and watch the first season of The Simpsons and the first season of the Seinfeld, it's not that good. But I mean, once you get into the third or fourth year, they start to become like really, really entertaining. The news events, I just remember seeing, like you said, the iconic image of the man standing in front of the tank in Tiananmen Square. But yeah, I was still quite young at that time, so other things don't really stick out for me. For 1999, for TV, Family Guy I was a big fan of when I was in high school. I love trivia, so Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I'd watch it if it was on TV, and don't really care for Pokemon. For technical breakthroughs, the first emojis, that really sticks out because everyone uses them now. And the first BlackBerry, I owned a BlackBerry about 8 years ago when they were just starting kind of dying out. And the reason why I hung on to it for so long is because I really like the QWERTY board, like on a phone. I find it a lot easier to type with, as opposed to now everyone just uses touchscreen, right? And for news events from 1999, Nunavut, I remember that becoming a big deal just because I'm from Canada and we always had to like memorize like the provinces and territories. And Vladimir Putin becoming becoming president at that time for the first time, and even now. And then he had some changes to the constitution that will ensure that he's gonna be ruling Russia like well into his 80s. So that's kind of interesting.
Of course, there's a lot more music, movies, news events from both 1989 and 1999. So feel free to let us know about your favorites and your memories from those specific years in the comments below, wherever you find this podcast.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you regarding these years and get your feedback. Now let's move on to the main topic of this episode. It's time for Battle of the Decade.
3, 2, 1.
Battle of the Decade.
Fight.
I must break you.
So for the Battle of the Decade in this episode, and our main topic, we'll be fighting it out on which decade had the best summer blockbuster movie as a child. Some rules: the movie had to be released in the summer, the months of June, July, or August, and had to be one of the highest grossing movies of that year. Big stars and big money. That's what we're going for here.
Round 1. Let's fight.
Choose your fighter.
Some honorable mentions I had for the best summer blockbuster movie were 1986 Aliens, 1982's Blade Runner, 1988's Die Hard, 1982's The Thing, 1984's Ghostbuster, 1987's RoboCop, 1987's Predator, 1989's Batman, and 1981's Raiders of the Lost Ark. But despite those great choices, my pick was released in the summer of 1985 on July 3rd, and that movie was Back to the Future. It starred Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd, Leah Thompson, and Crispin Glover. It was directed by Robert Zemeckis.
And some honorable mentions for 1999 summer blockbusters include Terminator 2, Judgment Day, The Lion King, Jurassic Park, Men in Black, Independence Day, and the huge disappointment that was Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. But my choice for the best summer blockbuster was 1994's Speed, an American action thriller film directed by Jan de Bont in his feature film directorial debut. The film stars Keanu Reeves, Dennis Hopper, Sandra Bullock, and Jeff Daniels. It is about a speeding bus that is rigged by a mad bomber to explode if it ever drops below 50 miles per hour.
Round 2. Let's fight.
Tail of the tape.
So as far as Back to the Future goes, I remember watching this movie in the theater and just how popular it became from word of mouth. I really enjoyed the story and the cast, including Michael J. Fox, who, by the way, was actually a replacement actor for the movie.
Yeah, who was the original guy? It was like Eric Stoltz or
Eric
something?
Stoltz, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
I think they filmed a lot of the movie, too, but
Yeah.
things worked out in the end, I guess. I watched this movie with my parents and really liked how it mixed both my time frame and like my father's childhood, too. It was a movie that we both could relate to in some ways because, it went back to his time when he was young, and it was during my time, in current time, when I was around the same age. And the movie seemed to have everything: drama, action, comedy. It was all put together perfectly, and that's why some people call it the perfect movie.
Okay, and some reasons why I chose Speed is because it's a terrific popcorn thriller. It's taut, tense, and energetic, with outstanding performances from Keanu Reeves, Dennis Hopper, and Sandra Bullock. I remember seeing this in the theater with my dad, as we used to frequent the movie theater on the weekends. It was kind of our thing. We'd go out and watch a movie and then get like Tim Hortons afterwards and then go home. The film keeps the viewer on the edge of their seat. It's action-packed, and the premise of the story is well constructed. It's a masterpiece of the action genre, and it has all the elements of a great movie. I think Speed really defines how action movies they really peaked in the 90s. I think they got like really, really, really good in that decade, and Speed kind of illustrates that.
Round 3. Let's fight.
Counterattack.
So as far as Speed goes, I'm a Keanu Reeves fan, but this isn't one of the movies that I remember that much from him. I don't even remember this movie that much. I can't say that I didn't like it or I liked it. It just wasn't rememberable to me. I mean, I know the movie, and I definitely saw it.
Mm-hmm.
I was around 21 when that came out, and I don't remember seeing it in the theater. I might have. If not, I saw it on video probably, a couple of years later type thing. The only scene I remember was when Keanu jumps onto the bus, like off a car onto the bus. And I remember it looking like his legs snapped in half type thing and thinking, okay, right. he can never walk again, movie over type thing.
Yeah.
So I didn't like it that much, beyond that fact, I don't think. Just the way it was filmed, I don't know if it was a stuntman or what, but just looked like the legs snapped.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably, just the timing of that movie in my life being in my early 20s. I wasn't going to the movies as much at that time. Both movies were on TV or something. I'd probably end up watching Back to the Future over Speed. And Back to the Future just had like a bigger impact on me. Like you mentioned, action movies coming to its peak in the 90s. I think the 80s had a lot more action films and were known a lot more for the action films and action stars like Arnold and Stallone and all of those movies and the kind of rated R action films. So I don't remember much, in terms of action movies in the 90s at all, but I'm not saying I didn't like Speed. I just don't remember it that much. But I do like Keanu Reeves. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know this segment's is called Counterattack, but there's not many bad things I can say about Back to the Future because I love it. I love as you said, if it's on TV, I'll watch it. I think it's really, really good, and I really love time travel and that kind of idea. As it compares to Speed, I mean, the only thing I could say in Speed's defense is that it's got a lot more action in it, but when it comes to like credibility of story and like unique storytelling, I'm gonna have to hand it to Back to the Future. I think both films are excellent, and I really respect your choice for Back to the Future. It's a classic, and I hope they never remake it because I know it'll just get butchered.
Yeah, I just was curious, based on which movie made more money. So I looked up. Speed made around $350 million worldwide, and Back to the Future made $389 million worldwide. So pretty much the same.
Okay.
Overall.
Yeah.
So
what was Back to the Future's budget?
Do you know Speed's?
Speed is $30 million.
19 million?
19 million. Well, that's pretty good. Yeah, I guess there wouldn't be that much like technical stuff except for that like lightning shit at the end, right?
Yeah, it must have cost a few dollars replacing the actor though. Like the main actor.
Oh yeah.
So who knows?
Yeah, and you mentioned that earlier, like I saw like they filmed a lot of like almost like 3/4 of it was done before they shit canned Eric Stoltz.
Yeah.
Round 4. Let's fight.
Final round.
Once again, why I picked Back to the Future for my choice for the best blockbuster summer movie. It combined all aspects of movie genres, including comedy, action, drama, and special effects, all so perfectly. I loved the cast and characters in the movie, as well as the story itself. I loved the fact that it was relatable to both my childhood and my parents' childhoods. It's a movie that's easy to rewatch and just as enjoyable the first time seeing it. In fact, there are more and more little things in the movie that you can find the more you watch it type thing. Like, what do they call those? Hidden eggs or, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Easter eggs.
Easter eggs, sorry. And the movie still holds up today.
Yeah, and some final notes on Speed. I'd have to say, like, action flicks are usually written off as, like, debased, like, silly movies, unless they can pull it off. And Speed really works like a charm. It's a reminder of how much movie escapism can still stir us when it's dished out the way Speed is. It was a commercial success, earning $350 million worldwide on a budget of $30 million. And it stands the test of time as a fun film to watch and is a great way to pass the time. I actually recently rewatched it on my summer vacation, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Remember, you can vote on which of these blockbuster movies you thought was better in the poll in the above top right corner here on YouTube, or on any of social media at 10 Years Apart Pod, or at our website, 10yearsapart.com.
And finally, on this episode of 10 Years Apart, we're going to look back at a 1990s winter fad that was known as the GT Snow Racer. Could it make a comeback? Why did it fade away? It's time for Would That Fly Today?
Would that fly today?
The GT Snow Racer, a downhill winter sled that started before the 1990s but found most of its success during the 1990s. These were probably most popular in Canada. Adam, do you remember the GT Snow Racer?
Yeah, I loved riding GTs. Growing up in rural Ontario, my siblings and I would find steep hills out in the woods to ride our GTs after clearing a trail for them. I think they're tons of fun in the wintertime and good for racing each other as well. I like the GTs because it gives the rider more control over the sleigh with the precision of like the steering wheel. You could actually like guide where you were going a lot easier than just in a simple sled. So yeah, I remember GTs, and I had a lot of fun riding them when I was a kid. How about you, Scott? Do you remember the GT Snow Racer?
I was in my later years of high school when they became popular. So I didn't even hear about them until my younger brother got one. So I remember thinking that they looked pretty cool, and that you could probably get some good speed with them due to the weight of them. They're a little heavier than your normal sled or toboggan type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a bit older at the time, so I wasn't, into sledding so much then, and rarely went, tobogganing or anything like that during that time. I remember that some of the ski hills were actually allowing you to bring your GT Snow Racer to the hill, and you're allowed to use them on, certain slopes like the bunny hills and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, it's not something that I was into that much. So why do you think the GT Snow Racer faded away?
Well, I don't know if it really has faded away completely. When I was looking up GT Snow Racer online, I looked on Amazon, and there are reviews of this product that were written in this year, in 2020. So I think people are still buying them. Probably as you mentioned earlier, mostly in countries that have a lot of snow, like Canada, maybe like Scandinavia or Russia. I think if it has dwindled in popularity, it's because technology is having kids stay indoors more nowadays, in the wintertime especially, rather than going outside and playing. So why do you think it faded away, Scott?
Yeah, again, like you said, maybe it hasn't. I mean, I'm sure you can still go into a Canadian Tire and probably buy some form of a GT Snow Racer today. Maybe something new came along, some new type of toboggan or something. I think the GT Snow Racer was a bit more of a pain in the ass to carry around and carry back up the hill compared to some traditional sleds and stuff. I remember the crazy carpet and the upside down disc type thing that you could sit in.
Mm-hmm.
Those were easy to carry up. The crazy carpet just rolled up and you just carried it back up the hill type thing. So it might have been a bit of a pain to get back up the hill.
Yeah. Especially when you're a kid, right? It'd take 2 people to carry it up.
Mm. And as you mentioned, I'm sure the GT Snow Racer is still around in some form, but I'm sure it evolved in some ways since the 1990s. And maybe like you mentioned, I don't think kids get out on the hills so much anymore during the winter as they did at least when I was younger type thing. And also maybe they've become, considered to be a little more dangerous than, traditional forms of sledding. So who knows? in terms of what parents think about them and stuff now these days. And maybe there's some injuries and stuff that occurred or people getting hurt on them. Who knows?
Yeah, could be.
So do you think the GT Snow Racer could fly today?
I think if parents these days would encourage their kids to put the tablet or smartphone away and go outside, I think kids would still enjoy riding GTs. They're very fun to ride, and one of my fondest memories of childhood was going out, braving the freezing temperatures, and having the exhilarating experience of flying down a steep hill on a GT. How about you, Scott? Do you think that GTs could fly today?
I think they could fly today, and again, probably still around, and I'm sure you can find them or some form of knockoff of them in like a Canadian Tire or your local department store type thing. I don't think they will ever be as popular as they were in the early 90s, but I'm sure they would still be fun to use today if you were out on the hill somewhere. So I think they would fly in terms of them still being around out there today, but not on every kid's Christmas list of gifts like in the 90s.
Also, give us your feedback on the GT Snow Racer in the comments below. You can also share with us your memories of the GT Snow Racer on our social media at 10 Years Apart Pod or at our website 10yearsapart.com. The GT Snow Racer, did you have one? Would it fly today? Yes.
Well, that's all for this episode of 10 Years Apart. Thanks for listening, and you can now help us out by helping us decide which decade had the best blockbuster movie. Just head over to our website at 10yearsapart.com or any of our social media at 10yearsapartpod and vote right now. Leave us your comments and thoughts below wherever you find this podcast.
Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on our YouTube channel so you can check out our other episodes. If you came across this episode and enjoyed it, please hit that like button. Subscribe to us here on YouTube for our latest videos, and don't forget to share. Sharing really helps us out.
And once again, find us at 10yearsapart.com or any of our social media at 10yearsapartpod. Stop by, vote, and let us know some of your stories from the 1980s or 1990s.
Remember to like, subscribe, share, and leave us your comments wherever you found this podcast. And thanks again for tuning into the past with us here on 10 Years Apart.
What did you think about that episode of the 10 Years Apart podcast? If you liked it, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button below. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos like this. Vote on which decade you thought was better for this episode in the top right corner or at 10yearsapart.com. And leave us any comments you may have regarding the 1980s or the 1990s. Thanks again, and you can also check out some more videos like these.